Hey everybody, and welcome to the Binary Ninja live stream. I'm your host, Jordan Wines, and we have a special guest today. Before we get to that, though, I want to remind everybody that we've got the end of the year, the holidays coming up. So our schedule that was on the intro countdown, and we'll post it in the description as well below afterwards, is we're going to take a couple weeks off, give people time to catch up if you've missed the last week. These are like 2 hours a week is a lot of content. So check out the outlines from previous episodes, catch the ones that you've missed. Enjoy your holiday breaks. Hopefully everyone has time to relax and spend it with family and stay safe. So with that, let's switch over to our featured guest of the week, which is Mark. Oh, what are we looking at? We're looking at my wrong tab. Oh, good. Everyone can see the YouTube stream stats. Let's try this again. All right. Now they can see you. I think they can see you. There we go.
All right.
Mark, welcome to the live stream. It's good to have you.
Yeah, awesome. It's good to be here. Thanks.
So Mark answered the call. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I was looking for people that have written plugins to hop on and talk about what they've done, like why they were using Binary Ninja, how they're using it for, what they've done with it. But we were talking a second ago, like, you know, it's not just the plugins too, like it's a whole bunch of involvement you've had, right? So do you want to maybe talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done in the Binary Ninja ecosystem?
Sure, yeah. So I started using Binary Ninja, you know, what, 5 years ago now or something like that.
Were you in the beta? Were you in like the private beta we had?
I don't think I was in private beta. I would think, but I'm pretty sure that I've been riding that resubscribe discount for a while now.
All right. Well, it did still go up anyways for everyone at the HLIL release, but yeah, keeping it renewed is the way to go. Thanks for that plug. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, go ahead.
No worries. Yeah. So whenever there was like new features that would come out or competitions, like the theme competition, I was like, oh, this will be cool. You know, I'm interested by these different color combinations that I see in like editors and whatnot, and I think it'd be cool to try this out. Never done something like that. And so
I'm going to switch over. I think people should still be able to hear you, but keep talking. I'm going to show off some of the themes while we're chatting.
Yeah, so like Stray Light is one that I wrote, and you know, I liked the idea of having different themes available. Like I use VS Code and I have a bunch that I use, but yeah, it was both like, hey, experiment what I like. But it was also kind of cool because it was like, if you look at that one, for example,
Blood
the
Dragon.
function names. Yeah, Blood Dragon, which is a reference to the Far Cry Blood Dragon game.
The name is the best part about that one, I think. Although, like, and it is consistent too. When I first got this, I was like, "What is this?" And then I googled it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
Yeah, so actually those colors came like I took the cover art and then just grabbed the colors out of the palette there. Uh, but I like using that sort of stuff because the function names and the data variables just pop out at you.
Yeah.
And so like if you're scanning a bunch of disassembly, that makes it a little bit easier to see like
And
at a zoomed out view.
actually, this is something that I don't think a lot of folks may not even know. Let me find like a bigger binary. If I switch to, I have to install the theme. I don't actually have the theme installed right now. Although, you know what? I have actually shown people how to install themes before. So this is a reasonable thing to do real quick on stream.
Yeah.
So there's a couple ways you can install themes. I think I can't even spell. Okay, there we go. I think you can literally just do this. I think if you actually clone community-themes straight into your user folder, I want to say.
Yeah, I just did this the other day.
Okay, good. Yeah, because it used to be you had to put it in a theme folder, but then I think it also is for community themes. All right, so we should have a bunch more options here. And there's also, while we're talking about themes real quick, since I don't think I've even shown them at all before, there is there's a set of themes from like a theme pack thing. Where is it?
Yeah.
That like base 16. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For the audience members. Oh wait, so audio issues. Oh no. Audio is starting glitching like crazy. Oh. Is audio for both of us or just one of us? And for chat, that was my son. I told him he's allowed to walk through. He really wanted to be on stream, so he's allowed to walk through the room one time during stream. He can't say anything, but he's allowed to walk through. Yeah, let's see if the whole stream audio is messed up. Oh, that's not cool. Okay, you know what? Hold on. Let me. See if I can mess with this. It's the Streambox CPU is low. Says live, stream health. Look at all these pieces. It was okay for the first minute. Maybe if I switch back to this view. All right, so we're on base cams again. Let's see how the audio does here. You do an audio check mark.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can. Well, this will be awkward if we can't go to the desktop view. So let's just test it and see if this. Now, does this get worse again? Is it switching to this one that breaks it, or is it still sounding okay? It's bad. Oh man, what is wrong with this one? Okay. Huh. Well, that will be awkward. I guess you're gonna get to drive the whole stream. So let's go back here where you're on video, and you can, if you want to screen share the. Ooh, you know what? That could be related. Hold on, that's a good point. Do I have audio from that? All right. If you want to go ahead and screen share and then talk through the theme stuff you were talking
Yeah, let me
about,
see
why
if
don't
I
you go ahead
can
and do that while I see if I can fiddle with the OBS.
debugging on stream.
We're doing it live.
Does it hurt when I do this?
Oh, look at that. Looks good. Okay.
Yeah, so when I saw the base 16 themes, I was like, man, these are really good themes. Who did all this? And then I saw it was, and then I heard back from them that it was a pack. I was like, that's really smart. That's really smart.
Yeah. The only downside is that like you have so it gives you the right colors, but it doesn't always give you the right mappings. Like I do feel like I've used several of those base 16 themes in other like in other apps, like in Visual Studio Code. I've got base 16 installed, and it just doesn't have the same feel because like it has heavier use of one color versus another one maybe.
Right.
So some of them aren't like the same. But yeah, there's some really nice ones in there. I like those themes.
Yeah, and there's like a bunch of hidden stuff in here that I discovered when I was playing with themes. Like, I don't know if people know this, but like all of this stuff is gradientable. Like, so this one's visible because there's this pinkish hue,
Yeah.
and same with the background is gradientable, and there's a million things that are color related,
I,
which
I think that's how with zombies on the Liege one tried to reproduce the Ida light color gradient,
yeah, that one is good.
specifically to using the gradients as well.
I try not to use anything in light mode these days, but it's pretty good.
I do like high contrast, which actually is another with zombies one. High contrast, like if
Mhm.
I'm projecting like an actual physical projector, is super useful.
Yeah, that
That's
makes sense.
but yeah, like for most of my like regular usage, I'm on whatchamacallit, I'm on regular dark theme pretty much the whole time.
I mean, it is really good. But yeah, so the theme contest was fun. It was a way for me to just like spend a weekend playing around with colors. Um, but there's been other stuff too. Like when the dock widget stuff was first coming out, I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to try to do this stuff,
Yeah.
and wrote a plugin for that. When the debugger was still like just an alpha, I wrote some scripts showing how you could use this scriptable debugger because I feel like that's really an underrated idea. It's like a
Right.
super
I
powerful
agree.
thing to have a scriptable debugger.
Yeah, I mean honestly, there's a lot of really like we had like one customer in particular who's really interested in us adding a debugger support. But like we didn't really want to just like build yet another debugger. Like there's great debuggers already out there. Like we're not going to build a better debugger than x64 DBG, than WinDBG, than LLDB. Like there's already good debuggers that exist. But like I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that can happen with both scriptability and with combining stuff like IL and things. Actually, so one of the few things that like the BINJY debugger does that I like is that you can actually switch to IL views and single step through that. So you can actually step through. It's much like a source code debugger, right? Where you can like single step through lines of source code. You can do the same thing in all the different ILs,
Yeah,
which I think is neat. But there's still a lot of like regular debugger stuff that the BINJY debugger isn't as good at. I think that we need to kind of improve on. But
yeah,
yeah, like scriptability, like that's of course our first thing too, right? Like everything is an API. That's always our main goal.
yeah. So I mean, the scriptability is a big thing. The IL stuff is super impressive. Like I just saw the other day when you're talking about deleting at the IL level. Well, I should say, quote, deleting
Yeah,
by
yeah,
knopping out a call. I was like, oh, this makes my life so easy. You can just take a whole call and knock it out without
yeah,
having
and
to
it
think about like
all the
stack offsets or
parameters and
anything.
exactly whether it's stack based or register arguments or where like yeah, nope, just delete it and it'll clean it all up for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think the phrase I use is that one feels like a reversing superpower, or maybe it's a deep phrase. Somebody like uses that figure of speech of like just going through code like delete 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 delete, and you can like now it would be cool is if you could just do everything else. Like imagine dragging control flow graph edges. Like oh no, change this and drag this block over to here, like rearrange things. Like it'd be interesting. You could totally rewrite based on that. All right,
Yeah.
we're seeing Binja.
Well, I figured people would rather look at this than me.
I mean that's what they're here for. I say, but I mean, I say that, and I still put my face on screen here. I should turn me off. Actually, I wonder if that's part of my issue. Oh, see, I was hiding all the little like little Chrome meat stuff at the top of my face. That's the real reason that's up there. Um, yeah. So actually, so the themes and the thing that got us like first talking, I think the first thing that came to my mind, anyways, too, was BNCov, which is probably where you've put the most like work into something midget related that's it's like out there, I would say. Um, is
Yeah.
that fair, or do you think was Sourcery? Oh yeah, so
Oh, definitely.
you mentioned the doc widget. Do you want to show it real quick, and then we can get to BNCov? Because I think BNCov
Oh,
is
sure.
the
Yeah. Let me I just have to swap back and forth between my windows.
sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so the sorcery pane thing was definitely not first, but this I was actually really proud of because there's so little code behind this, and I was just like, this can't be it. It's that good without like trying to do anything. And granted, the code is super rough. This was really just a proof of concept. Like I don't expect it to work on anything but Linux right off the top. But you can see right away that like as I'm clicking around, the source view on the right is getting updated, and that's the real source. And so what this is doing is taking the debug symbols in this binary and then just literally invoking adder to line on every click, which is super inefficient, but again, quick and
I mean,
dirty, right? It's
for
fast
something
enough.
that's like interactive, like a user who's the one that's clicking, like it's totally reasonable, right? Like the user's not going to be clicking 80 times a second. Like that's just not going to happen.
Exactly. And so what this allows you to do is that if there's debug symbols in there and you have access to exactly the same version of source, usually means you built it, then you can map every single click. And it was, it was some work to do the zipping around and within the file and getting the highlight in the Qt widget and all that, but it really wasn't that bad. Like, a few hours of work. And what I really like doing is building these like small single-use tools, and then when you need them, you put them together, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is a superpower. So uh, putting this together with BNCov blew my mind because uh, it was so powerful to be able to see right in the source where I was. Like HLIL is nice, but clearly having the source is an advantage, and you should use it if you
If you
can,
got it, you should. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be foolish
right?
to ignore it. Yeah.
So putting those two things together, I felt like is that synergy, right?
And so for people that don't know yet, too, again, BNCov was the main thing that we were expecting to talk about on stream, but that's your sort of code coverage interface, if that's a fair way to describe it. Like you connect Binary Ninja with some data you've generated through a number of different code coverage generators, right?
Yeah. So it's block coverage. It's really just an abstraction for block coverage, right? It's primarily designed for scripting. So it started out as I wanted to do coverage highlighting. And so when I first wrote it, Lighthouse existed, but it didn't really support Binary Ninja, or at least
Hmm.
it didn't officially support.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, oh, my first plugin, what should I do? Oh, I'll just write code coverage highlighting. And I did it in a very short amount of time because the API was so easy to work with. Um,
You'll
but
get your
then,
check afterwards for talking up how good the API is. That's the bribe.
well, really, I'm just so embarrassed about how little code is in BNCov.
Mm.
It's like it's under 1,000 lines of code, and the majority of it is helper functions. So the idea is you have your target, and you're going to run it with some kind of input. If it takes input over a file or a socket or whatever, it either way, you record the execution and you record block coverage, which is just an unordered list of all of the basic blocks that got executed, and then you highlight those. So at the time, I was doing a lot of
and
fuzzing.
and the unordered is like important, right? Because some traces are meant to be like actual traces with ordering is involved, and this is merely just meant for pure like highlighting or pure like coverage. Hence, being cov.
Yeah, exactly, right. So yes, unordered is the case. You could have a trace file that would record the ordering, and then the only difference is that it would be a ton of redundancy, so it'd be a lot larger.
Yeah.
So it's really a trade-off. But so at the time, I wanted to do this block coverage stuff because I was fuzzing a lot, and it's like, how quickly can I go from nothing to fuzzing a program to understanding what that fuzzer was able to do? So if you're sort of fuzzing something black box, like a CTF binary or something you haven't really reversed yet, I mean, it can help you understand the program when you know these different inputs get to these different spots.
Yeah, like
Uh,
it's a file format parser that parses a bunch of different file formats, and I want to see where is the text file part or parsing, where's the markdown parsing or whatever. Just feed it that file, generate a coverage map, and then you've already got a much narrowed set of scope to analyze.
yeah. And so the interactive part was cool, and that's where it started. But the real, like what I think made it important was the idea of this shouldn't be something that's just interactive. It definitely should be easy to use interactive, and I love visualizations. But the important part is it allows you to automate this, because I was fuzzing these programs and I was finding myself asking some of the same questions, like what are the functions that are interesting? Where did the fuzzer stop working? And those are questions that are really easy to answer when you have this information. So let me switch to Binary Ninja so I
Yeah,
can just.
let's see some demos. And another thing to point out too is, you mentioned Lighthouse at the time didn't have BINJY support. I think Marcus is even on the stream. And Lighthouse is, I would say, much more featureful than BNCov from like a UI perspective, right? Like it has, and it has a long history. Marcus has been working on it for a long time. It's got a ton of code, and it was originally for IDA and now supports IDA and BINJY. And actually, was it support Geeter now too? I forget. I feel like I should know that. Um,
Yeah,
but like, and again, his focus is more on like, it has a ton of like UI features as well too. There's like even really nice filtering, table sorting, diffing from like a visual perspective to be able to like hone in and like interactively go through stuff.
yeah, definitely. So BNCov, it's really it's the building blocks, because I wanted to automate these questions, but I knew that these questions wouldn't be the same questions everybody else has. And so it could be something simple like well, so this is the main function for this
Oh, I think
toy
we've lost
binary.
you. We're looking at,
Oh,
you're presenting to everyone.
womp womp. Let me see if we can get this up.
Yeah. No, Bradley, we're talking to Mark, and he's showing off. He's been a longtime BINJY user and plugin author and theme author, and we talked a little bit about themes. We talked a little bit about his other plugins he's written. One of which was Sourcery, which was one of the first, if not the first, public doc widget plugin. I think. Do you know, was it actually the first? It may very well have been.
It might have been. I mean, I know that Lighthouse was getting down in the Qt guts before I was, but
Well, in terms of using our doc widget APIs, right? Like the in the our plugin manager.
yeah, it
Um,
was it was probably one of.
anyway, yeah, it's a nice simple one. Yeah, but now we're looking at BNCov. See, look at that. Brilliant, even recognized it just from the screenshot.
Nice. But yeah, so this is a great example of what BNCov is for, right? Initially, you're seeing, okay, we didn't cover these blocks in main, and then if you just wanted to ask the question like, what are those blocks doing? Oh, also a cool thing is that you get up to MLIL highlighting, but HLIL doesn't go. So, um,
Oh, interesting.
but
Is that because BNCov hasn't been updated, or because there's differences in the highlighting APIs?
that's an API thing, because all I'm doing is highlighting the basic blocks, and then I guess that highlight doesn't transfer over to the HLIL basic block. Don't know.
Huh. That's a
So
good question.
3DC4. Yeah. So like I'm just highlighting this block.
We'll see if maybe somebody else from Vec 35 is on that knows off the top of their head. I'm not sure. So in general, we do lack
Well, there's probably not a one-to-one mapping between basic blocks and HLIL, right? So it might get awkward.
well, it's true of all the ILs though, right? Like every IL has differences from the representation before it in terms of how the blocks work. So
Hmm.
that's actually one of the like long-term things we need to improve is it would be nice to be able to say, like, I want to highlight these basic blocks at this IL and have it just work, as opposed to right now where, well, the basic block, is there a one-to-one mapping between another basic block which I've already highlighted and then propagated through? That's a much harder thing to do. But to also just have a separate set of mappings that just says like, I'm highlighting this thing here would do it too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Marcus, by the way, is saying that it's actually just disabled because there were some errors in the mapping, um, which wouldn't surprise me. So that's why HLIL is specifically not highlighted right now.
nice. So this is an example of, you've got a main function. You might be asking yourself, okay, so if I fuzz this thing, which that's where these inputs came from, then the question is kind of like, well, why didn't we reach these? And so BNCov has a couple of features that are kind of like that. So there's a couple of stuff that's right out of the box built into highlighting to show the idea. So there's this idea of a coverage frontier, where these are blocks where one edge, where there's at least one outgoing edge that was not taken across
Mm-hmm.
across the corpus, right? And so this gives you like a visual indicator of like, okay, these ones are.
If you want to expand your fuzzer code coverage, like here's where you need to change the control flow.
Yeah, exactly. And this is an interesting thing to look at, because potentially you could have like calls to other functions that are interesting. Or you could say, hey, I actually know that like calls to stack check fail are uninteresting. So I gave an example in, I think in the scripts directory, which BNCov comes with a bunch of scripts because that's kind of the idea, is that you want to automate these things, and BNCov itself is just like the abstraction to work with. It allows you to say, okay, I've got block coverage from all of these different inputs. Now I want to get at the static information. And that's really the secret of BNCov, is that all of the magic comes from Binary Ninja's API. It just gives you the ability to link inputs to that information. So I can say, hey, across all the inputs, where did I not take an edge? Okay. So across all of those, where is there a call to a function that I've never seen before? That's interesting.
Hmm.
And so I can write one script that does that, and it'll work on every binary ever.
Now, is your expected workflow that it's just a separate headless script maybe that you're going to automate that over, or is it also useful in the, like on a personal license in the Python console, or where does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do both. But so from a, if I'm just going to work in a console sort of thing, um, I would do things like restore default highlights. There we go. Import BNCov.
So was that happening in a, what was the restore default highlights? Was that a menu or an action? I didn't see
Oh
that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking at a small
So
screen.
yeah, quick explanation for BNCov. The flow is always you import coverage data, so you can import a whole directory or one at a time. This reset coverage state is mainly like my something went wrong. Just click this button.
I got you.
Import directory and watch was something that I implemented because, as I said, I was using a fuzzer and trying to understand what was happening.
Like
And so
iteratively.
yeah, and so this is this idea, if you set up a pipeline, so your fuzzer is in theory creating new inputs all the time. Um, it gets slower over time, but that's the idea.
Hmm.
And then if you create a pipeline where you're creating coverage files from each of these new inputs, then you can watch the directory where these new coverage files are appearing, and you can see, in near real time where your fuzzer is making coverage. And so if we go to, so the visualization that's in the screenshot up top is basically this classic fuzzing test function
Heat
where there's
map
a bunch.
style thing.
Yeah. So what this is, if we see it in HLIL, it'll make a lot of sense. Well, let's see what it says actually. That's not quite as friendly as I would have thought. But if you look, was it R? Yeah. So basically, it's looking at each character and
Oh, if
saying,
you
is it?
hit space on that and switch to linear. See if that looks better.
Still a little long.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you get the idea. It's a sequential string comparison, comparing one character at a time. Yeah. And so the way that this looks in Binary Ninja with BNCov is it looks like a heat map when it's all done. But if you're watching it happen, you'd see, one block get discovered, then the next, then the next, then the next, as the fuzzer like goes byte by byte and succeeds in flipping the comparisons.
And this
Like
is
that's what.
using like a feedback based fuzzer that's using that coverage information as well to go further, or this is like, how is it?
Yeah, so this is AFL style. It just needs
Yeah.
to have some sort of coverage feedback, and it'll be able to do this and bit flipping.
Yep. Yep.
But then when you look at this as a corpus, you step back and you say, okay, but show me what coverage looks like across all of the files. That's where this specific heat map is useful. So you can see the blue indicates these are cold paths in the way that I display it, because they're less interesting, because this just means that almost every input file in the corpus goes through this block. Whereas in this one, this means very few cover this block. And so if you're looking at a minimized corpus, basically it looks across all of the seeds, all of the input files that you have, and says, if I have two files that have duplicate block coverage or equivalent, then I only need one of those two. And then so if
Yep.
you minimize
Min set.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, so if you min set that set of files, then you end up with this interesting sort of distribution. And that's what you're seeing here.
Which, by the way,
Where
is that like a real term? Because I've always used that to mean like a minimum set of inputs to generate the same overall code coverage, but I don't know if that's actually like a real word. Like, is that? I think people know what I mean when I
yeah,
say it, but I don't.
it's definitely fuzzing parlance, because
Yeah.
the if you look up the algorithmic problem that it represents, that word doesn't I think that there's a different phrase that people
Yeah,
use.
I'm curious what the proper graph theory or whatever, domain is that covers that. But good, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's I'm glad it made sense at least to you.
yeah, for sure. No, and so that's like one thing that you could do with BNCov, right? It's an example of a miscellaneous task. Is you could look across a big set of files, um, and min set them based on block coverage. Now, most fuzzers have this sort of thing built in, but it's an example you could do, or you could have a more advanced version of that where you'd say, hey, I want to save files where they have to touch these two functions and everything else, throw it away. You can do that with BNCov. It's very simple. um, you would just you would just say, okay, I'm going to click here so I can get the meta variable here. BNCov, the magic variable is covdb, sort of
Yeah.
that you imported, and then you'd say get traces from block.
And I think so. And by the way, a couple updates from chat. So Evan says hi. He says hi, Mark. Evan
Evan.
Richter, and Gasolin is also on and said that I think he was talking about doing a min set as a first class feature in Lighthouse, which should be neat. I don't know if like really any like general tools that are used out there for generating min sets. I mean, it's been a while since I actually did fuzzing for real, so I'm probably just out of date. But
Yeah, so like AFL and libfuzzer have that built in, right?
oh,
AFL
he
corpus.
was talking about the heat mapping, not the min set stuff. Okay, and just saying also
Oh,
yes,
okay.
min sets, not a. All right, but yeah, I'm still curious though. They do have now the ability to generate those minimum corpuses based on overall coverage maps too.
Yeah, and so they're using their own internal coverage. AFL uses edge coverage, and libfuzzer can use that and a few more things. But
Okay,
so
nice.
yes, you can already do this with most fuzzers, but you might want to do min setting with like extra stuff, like only show me files where they execute a combination of functions.
Yeah, or you could do like the combination of two fuzzers. You've got both libfuzzer and AFL, and you want to combine the results of both of those to generate a super min set or whatever.
Yeah, and so that's a great segue because one of the scripts that's included is basically comparing coverage from two things. So maybe you want to just show before and after, or maybe you want to do a comparison, like, hey, I fuzz this target with AFL and libfuzzer, or maybe libfuzzer with two different options, and I want to see if there was blocks that one discovered that the other didn't. Now, doing that is really simple with this. Um, as I said, there's embarrassingly little functionality provided by BNCov. It's a lot of just, if you have block coverage information, then you can script all of the static information in interesting ways. So
So yeah, it's a
um,
lot of like set operations to do the intersection or union or whatever, and then represent it through primarily the highlighting, right?
exactly, and that was like the big thing, is that I just need set operations and then put it in Python, and then
Yeah.
I can do arbitrary set operations on that. And I think that really the key insight here is that block coverage is just the simplest way to bridge between all of this great static information we have to dynamic information. Because if you think about a corpus that is generated by a fuzzer, there's actually a lot of dynamic information that is there that you're never going to see unless you have a reason to look at it. Like, what is the value of a particular variable? What is
Yeah, or was the
uh,
variable constant, or did it change on each iteration, or there's
yeah,
lots of other information you don't have in this view
yeah,
normally.
exactly. So like maybe you had a question of why something never took a jump, like right here, right? So if you've got the information of what covered that block, like let's say you know that this is interesting, and you could have automated heuristics that tell you those things are interesting. Like maybe it's got a call to a really large or complex function in this block right here. And so you want to know, like, okay, what were all these values of this comparison for each of the seeds that cover it? Well,
Mm-hmm.
you can fire up a debugger and ask that question. And so that's the sort of like thing that I've automated. I wrote a debugger script to show like how in the BINJY debugger you could go from, oh yeah, I want to see what the values are here, to here's all your.
Yeah, rerun with all these inputs and break
Yep.
here, dump this value, and then go to the next one. Like just kind of iterate through each of them. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Exactly. Or maybe you've got a symbolic executor and you want to say, hey,
Yep.
is this even possible? You could use anger. I haven't played around with SE Ninja,
I was
but
about to ask. Yeah, I think that would be. I failed to use it once on stream, so I'm gonna wait till I can practice it off stream first to make sure I understand it before I try it again. But
that's it's kind of an important question to be able to ask, because some of this you want to have automated to a point, but you need to get that information back to the user. So I was always asking similar questions, and I just want those answers up front rather than having to turn the crank manually on all these different things. For example, I had this one target where I was running a script that was basically saying what basic block that I didn't reach dominated the largest amount of uncovered blocks left in the binary, because
mm-hmm,
that's in
mm-hmm,
theory the most important block for unlocking additional coverage.
mm-hmm.
And so I did that. And what I found is it was something just like this, where if this particular target, if you ran it with no arguments, it would run built-in unit tests. And because
Hmm.
I was fuzzing it by
You always
always
gave an
providing
argument. Yeah.
exactly, and so I never got to that functionality. Now in this case, not particularly interesting because it's just unit test, but that was like a big aha moment, because I was like, hey, this is right. This like showed me right where to look to find all of this functionality that I didn't know was there.
And it's iterative too, right? Because you can run that once, get it into your code coverage, and then move on to the next thing. What's the next basic block that dominates the most functionality? Kind of like work through it, where
Yeah.
you're progressively smaller and smaller things that you're looking through.
Yes, and that's exactly the sort of workflow that excites me about this, because my goal is to make it so that I spend as little time thinking, non-usefully. If I can have the fuzzer be working and
Yeah.
then just tell me what was it doing that was interesting, or where did it get stuck, and then I can look at that while it continues to work, and then I learn more about the binary as I'm looking at it and
Yeah.
potentially find interesting things. Then maybe I can unblock the fuzzer, or maybe I just found something that's more important.
Yeah, there was actually a thread just on Twitter just a week or two ago that I remember like chiming in on, where somebody were talking about like different fuzzers, and there's sort of like a lot of truisms, like different fuzzers find different bugs, and always be fuzzing is sort of like a mantra that we used to use a lot, that
Hmm.
get the worst fuzzer you can possibly get going as quickly as possible. Actually, there was a great quote somebody chimed in and said, like, cold cores find no bugs, right? Like, get your fuzzing going. It can be the world's worst fuzzer. Start it, and then go and iterate on it. Then go manually RE. Then go figure out how you can expand it. Then go analyze the target. What you're doing is even more, I think, useful than that, because you're not just saying, like, you're providing more touch points for interaction between the fuzzer and the user, right? Like it's a
Yeah,
higher information like bridge there between the two, as opposed to just like, well, I found new stuff where I didn't. I've got new interesting crashes or I didn't, right? Like, you're trying to get
right.
much more useful introspection into the fuzzing, which is neat.
Exactly. And if you're fuzzing black box stuff, this is basically the only way you can do it. So I provided this in-UI generic coverage report as an example. Um, but this is the sort of thing where you can do this interactively. You could write your own reports. To me, I think I like the in-UI links there.
Yeah, that being able to like parent a report to a binary view to like click back to stuff is super nice.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yes.
did you see? I put a snippet out this week that did a similar kind of thing, but I also used some HTML JavaScript shenanigans to make my table sortable
Oh,
as
nice.
well. So like you can have like yeah, I'll bring it up on stream later, but it like I love cheating, right? If there's already a library that does like HTML table sorting, and I can just include that with 2 lines of code, then that would be much better.
Definitely. Yeah. So that was always the idea, is to make the dynamic information more useful to you, show you the things that you want to know anyways, and then just automate all of it so I never have to think about it again. And this has been pretty effective in some of the stuff that I've been fuzzing. So like there was a bug in PCRE that I found, because I was like, what's the highest complexity thing that's not covered by the existing fuzzer? And the answer was they've got JIT generation.
Huh.
And I was like,
But
there's
like,
JIT
what
code?
triggers it? Like, yeah, when did they get triggered?
Exactly. So I think you have to turn it on with a flag. Like, I don't think it's invoked by default. But yeah, of course, if they're doing JIT, that is going to be hard to get exactly right. And yes, you should fuzz that for sure.
Yeah.
But that was one of those things where it was like, oh, just use BNCov and said, what are the high complexity functions that weren't covered?
What would you say you use BNCov more? Do you use it more like in UI like this with occasional interaction like command line, or do you have like totally separate standalone scripts you're running to like do totally automated stuff headless? Like what's your main workflow?
Yeah, it's more automated. It kind of depends on what your end goal is. For a long time, I'd been working on fuzzers, and then the question was always, what did we miss? What could we do better? And so when you're trying to do fuzzer comparison, I mean,
Oh man, where's Gamoza when you need him?
well, so speaking of him, he had a tool that was doing that was like spitting out a graph, and I think that that's really cool. But I actually think that this I like this paradigm because it doesn't matter what your fuzzer is. It doesn't matter if you use a symbolic executor. It doesn't matter if you use black box, gray box, whatever. I don't care if you manually design your seeds. This works on all of it without any extra instrumentation in the code. And so what I would do is I would have combinations of targets instrumented different ways or using different fuzzers, and I'd run them all and then use BNCov to put all the results together and view it as, it's just I would run them all against a vanilla target that didn't have instrumentation on it, because if you have a bunch of libfuzzer instrumentation everywhere, it really makes it less pleasurable to view.
So the other thing that I think it's nice is that it's surprisingly easy to get block based coverage, right? Like the you can. In fact, I remember one time. Excuse me, Andrew, one of my current Andrew, I've worked with now 3 jobs in a row. I've worked my last three jobs in a row. I've known him for a really long time. But we were working on something, and he's like, "Oh, I'll just like write like a branch trace coverage tool from scratch. All you need is accurate basic block disassembly, and you've got the trap register. Like you can literally just at the next branch you can say like where's my branch target, and done. You've got a complete coverage map really cheaply." Which is pretty neat. That like, and that's why there's lots of
Yeah.
different ways you can gather that data.
Yep. So Lighthouse has scripts for a bunch of different tools that do that. Dynamaria has built-in drcov. That's the one that I use and have some
Yeah.
automation around. I actually put in a BINJY debugger script where all it does is it says, what are all the basic blocks? All right, I'm going to put a breakpoint on all of those, and then as
Every
they're
time I
executed, I
trigger one,
remove that.
it's gonna be slow, right? But like it for some targets, that's all you need, right? And it's easy to get going.
Yeah, so like Dynamaria doesn't support Mac OS. Here I am on a Mac laptop, so I use that debugger script because I was in a pinch.
Hmm. So we got a question, by the way, from chat. Evan said, "Interesting target when you were talking back about the PCRE and the JIT." He says, "What kind of harnessing hacks did you have to do to track the JITted code?"
Oh, so honestly, I just I let the fuzzer do whatever. I kind of knew that there was going to be junk there, but it would eventually figure out enough useful stuff.
And so you weren't doing the code coverage maps because I mean none of the JIT code would have been in like a BNDB. It would have been, you would have had to do separate like memory dumps and then wire that up to BINJY if you wanted to use that to get your maps of JIT code, I assume. So it was just more about
Right.
like triggering exception, letting once you got the fuzzer there, it was able to do the rest.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, for what I was doing, anyways. I wasn't interested in tracing the JITted code. I was interested in tracing the code that was producing the JITted code. And so, in fact, you should probably, if you wanted to remove noise, like not trace the JITted code. So, like an AFL instrumented binary, you kind of get that for free because only your instrumented stuff is gonna
Yeah.
touch the coverage map.
Yeah, but if you're doing something like pint, you're going to get everything, and that's actually kind of more annoying. You want to like exclude the heap or any allocations, so you don't get that, I would assume.
Right. And so like for Dynamo Rio, I'm basically saying if it's not within the bounds of, so Dynamo Rio tells you which module a block belongs to. And so I filter on that first. And then if I get a block that doesn't, it's not known by
Yeah, yeah.
Binary Ninja, then it's out of bounds. And so I just throw that away.
Well, the one thing you could do, so one of the things, the other tricks that the BINJY debugger does is it can actually, like, so I'll caveat this with like every tool has error rates in their function identification for any non-trivial size programs, right? Like any reasonably complicated programs, like there'll be functions or not functions made as such, and there'll be functions that are missed. Like it's just, that's going to happen. But the debugger can inform BINJY's analysis. So like if you actually land somewhere that's in your module, but a function doesn't exist in BINJY, BINJY will just make that function for you. And it can also, like if you've got branch targets for like some like virtual table, for example, that it hasn't resolved, it can actually add branch targets based on the debugger flow automatically, which is kind of similar.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I kind of always made the presumption up front. Like if you've got bad targets, the targets that don't behave, like there's no guarantee that block coverage is ever gonna work on that. Though
Yeah.
I did have one person DM me and they were like, BNCov's not working for my target. And I was like, oh, well, let's see why. And they had overlapping basic blocks. They had a function, or they had several functions that would have different basic blocks mapping, overlapping, which obviously was reversing challenge. I was like, that's interesting. I think I can still work with this. And so, yes, now it supports overlapped basic blocks.
Because BINJY does, right? Like BINJY itself is like no
Mhm.
problem, just duplicates the addresses, which I don't think IDA can do, and I don't think either can do either. Um, like an
Yeah, the trick is you have to have the entry points to know that they're there.
yeah, yeah, that they're distinct.
So if you've got like a function that's overlaying blocks, then it works perfectly fine.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So, anything else that you didn't get to show off yet about BNCov that you think is cool?
Let's see. Oh, I think that the other thing that I would bring up is just sort of the sky's the limits on tool combinations. So one of the it kind of goes along with the sorcery pane thing, but one of the things that I did, and it's in the scripts folder, is you can look up. So if you've got debug symbols, and this is all about putting all your information together, which is something that I'm a big believer in, and I really like Binary
I
Ninja's
think
API.
I've heard you rant on this topic before, years ago, talking about like, yeah, like we've got all these different tools, we use all this different information, and you put it in one place so you can like draw these linkages, right?
Yeah, yeah, it just makes too much sense. Um, so using debug information, you've got this address to line stuff using the source. Um, you can click around and get that Sourcery pane plus BNCov, like really cool view. But again, just automate that stuff, man. So I wrote a script that just says, okay, for all of the frontier blocks, does the block that we haven't covered, does it contain a call? So that we're just going to presume that that's more interesting as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If it does, look up that line, figure out like what this conditional was, look it up in the source file, and then print that line out with some context. And so
Yeah.
what that does is now I've got a script that I can run on my debug targets, and it just spits out all of the lines where the fuzzer didn't figure out, one of the
A
conditionals.
gate or whatever it was. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can just see it like here's the line number, here's the actual source code.
So now you need a Visual Studio Code plugin so that it navigates you directly in like your existing code view, and
You
do all your
joke.
syntax highlighting. I mean,
I've been
kinda.
thinking about this.
Yeah,
I've
like
been thinking about this.
I think it makes sense.
But yeah, if you can put all your information together in one spot, it's super smart. And also something else that I've done that I think other people should copy is use Binary Ninja as the front end for your tool,
Mm.
please.
Hmm.
Because if you're doing anything that requires you to target specific instructions, blocks, or whatever, or let's say your tool just has output that is code, like code locations or whatever, then use Binary Ninja as your front end and then just have a plugin that does the mapping back and forth. Because it's like, think anger, for example. I don't want to go in anger and type in, okay, yeah, this spot at this address and this function. No, I want to right click and I would say, okay, start here, get here, flip this block. And I think there was a plugin that had some of that functionality for a while.
Yeah, it actually used Anger to do the solving. We need to rewrite that with like a native Z3 directly. I think would be a
Yeah,
cool
because I
task.
mean,
But yeah,
that's the way it should be done. I don't want to write a separate script to tell Anger about all of these basic blocks. Binary Ninja already knows. Like just invoke the tool from here, please.
I think though there's an interesting point. I mean, you even talking about all the scripting you do with BNCov. The point is that you have both a library and API that you're doing the automation on, so that you can. The ultimate end goal is to like automate everything you can. But when you're in development and as you're kind of like exploratory doing it, having that UI, you want both of those, right? That's like you're not saying
Definitely.
put everything in one UI. You're just like build this libraries, tie them all together, give yourself a really useful UI that can trigger this stuff, and that's like the where you want to live.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you can just think about all of the plugins that have good UI um, interaction stuff, and think about how annoying it would be to do those things via the command line.
Yeah,
Like the like I want to submit the first n bytes of my functions to see if I can get it identified for me. Do I want to do that in a command line or in a tool where I just right click and say, hey, what's this function?
I map the command palette to a hotkey and trigger it that way. All right. So real quick, what is your favorite thing about BNCov? What's the thing that you wish it had the most?
Okay. Uh, I think the favorite thing is just that it is so little code. It's like embarrassing, but at the same time, it's really awesome.
Yeah.
There's so little behind it. Most of it is just helper functions. I mean, I think that there's more parsing, like basic block parsing code, than there is much of anything else. Um, and I know that my least favorite thing, like the thing that I really want to fix, but there's
There's
nobody
only so
asking
many
for it,
hours
that
in
I
the
can
day.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as long as there's 0 issues on the GitHub repo,
Hey, Chatty, listening, get ready.
is that if you try to do 2 tabs at once right now, I was using sort of the magic variable,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it doesn't work. So if this happens to you, just do BNCov coverage data, reset coverage state, and then file an issue.
Do it again. Yeah. There's a lot of plugins I think that probably are cheating a little bit there. And if you have multiple tabs, they can get thrown off if they got any kind of global state or yeah, that's actually we should have some good example plugins or snippets or something, I think, showing like better multi-tab workflows. Yeah, Gasselden agrees. He says CLI argument soup on do everything via command line, and you've got to remember every switch and parameter and specify stuff versus just like click a couple times. So
Yeah.
UI context notification is broken right now, Glenn. I think. Did you see my Slack message earlier in the day? I actually was trying to build that plugin. I literally think it's broken right now. I got all the other native plugins building. Yeah, so the workflow for a multi-tab plugin can be registering with UI context notifications, so that like when the user switches tabs or does things in different tabs, you can actually figure out which tab you're in.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, because I wanted to say that there was something that was slightly more tricky, where like the BV variable could refer to the thing that you're currently having focus, but maybe you want it to refer to something else. I don't know. It
yeah,
was
yeah. So actually, I do have a quick question for both Glenn and Ziris, who, if I'm saying that right, chimed in. They were saying that it doesn't help with Arch issues. Do you mean Arch Linux or architecture like BINJY architectures? I'm not sure which they're referring to. I actually don't know. I'm wondering if, yeah. So we'll see which they were talking about. But well, cool. So it doesn't put a BV into the architecture. All right. I don't know enough about the UI context callbacks to parse this right now. I think architecture plugin hacks that want to. Oh yeah. Architecture plugins. Right. If people are using like so one of the design choices of Binary Ninja, right, is that architecture modules are meant to be multi-threaded, and so don't share state in your architecture module. Like have them be, what's the idempotent? Is that the right word? It's been a while since I used. Execute independently, standalone. You get a string of bytes, you turn it into disassembly, you turn it into lifting. Each one of those is kind of independent. And that means that some architectures it's really annoying because if you have like global state, like the CPU can switch between, like how do you kind of handle that? So I think the question was asking about that a little bit. But all right, let me see if I can fix the other audio. Let's see if I can switch over. And we'll keep Mark. Let's see. Okay, so I switched. Let's see what my audio. If my audio is messed up, we'll see if that's happening, and then we'll see if. I've turned off Mark. Trash audio. Oh, garbage. And I can't even hear Mark. Let me. Mark, why don't you go ahead and talk for a little bit?
sure. Is this the your computer's revolting against you and it just wants to see more of me?
Pretty
Can you
much.
not hear me?
I can't. I just wasn't saying anything because the stream could last thing. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to shrink our faces. Nothing like messing with your scenes live on stream, right?
All right.
So, okay, so first of all, check. Is our audio working? Is the first question. And now, video capture device. Okay, so it's fixed. Let's add the video capture. All right. Can you still hear us, or are we messed up? Because if so, that seems just weird.
Is it because you're pushing the video to me too?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Okay. Oh wait. Gone. Audio is messed up. Hold on. Let's try that. All right. All right. Stop the virtual camera. Let's try that. If I end the virtual camera, and is audio still messed up? Because if audio is still messed up, then man, you just get to drive the whole rest of the stream.
All right, what are
We
we
might
doing?
just be ending early if that's the case. How's it sound now, folks? Is audio still? Oh, you know what? I have a.
Crypto miner in the background.
See, and I even have 2 different computers, just so. Okay, there we go. I can at least hear it myself now. That is ridiculous. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. There we go. Testing. No, still awful. My pitch is changing. Like, this is so weird. You know what? Hold on. Filters. Noise suppression. Can't be it. All right, give me just a second. See if I can fix this in the next minute or so. We'll keep going. Otherwise, cam link. Delete that one. Hangouts. Delete that one. I'm just killing all my sources. Just keep going. All right, so I've completely changed my. That is so weird. I just can't show. No, it's not working at all. If I turn that off. Yeah, and as soon as I disable my video source, the audio is fine. Can I disable audio for this entirely? All right. So, oh, wait a minute. Okay, no, that's why. All right, so now I'm showing it. Can y'all hear me? Wait a minute. It's working. Okay. It's fixed. All right, now hold on. Let me add Mark back. Audio input capture. No, desktop audio. Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. Actually, all right, so I think I have our audio back. Go ahead and talk.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, perfect. All right. Audio's fine. Hold on. I have too many headphones. The only thing, something awful about hearing yourself at like a 1 second delay. That is the worst. Whew.
Mm.
So I still don't know exactly why it's busted, but it's at least working now. And I bet I could probably add our cameras back on too, but I'm not going to tempt fate. Um, so, all right, my BINJY stream is up. Cool. Um, all right, let me turn the volume down on that. All right, so did you have anything else you wanted to show off before we were moving off entirely, or?
No, I'm good.
All right, and you are welcome to hang out. I'm gonna go through the rest of my BINJY weekly items to cover for folks. I'm probably not gonna go a full 2 hours on the stream, everybody, but we'll see. We'll see what we can fit in, and if y'all have questions or things that you want us to cover, feel free to chime in. And just to note, we've gotten a couple of requests for topics that we haven't covered yet. So somebody requested we talk about SCC, which I think is a great idea. There's a bunch of stuff we could fill a hole. Mark? Have you played with SCC at all?
Only a little bit during CTFs.
Yeah, that was kind of its origin, right? Like there's a reason it's called the shellcode compiler. It was very much written for DEF CON CTF back in the day, for like in memory shellcode payloads. All right, so we've got BINJY working here. Oh, we were gonna switch to Shatterdeep, right? Or Straylight, which one? Let's go Straylight. How about that? Let's see if the stream likes that. So one of the things I want to talk about that happened this week is this feature. Oh, and see, is that visible on stream? No, that's the other problem, is that that's a little subtle. I actually might switch back to the dark theme. And you don't have to restart between. Yeah, see, look at this. This is why we do these streams. Jamie's like, wait a minute, you have themes? Yep, BINJY's got a whole bunch of themes, and we even have, so there's no UI to install them right now, which is one of the reasons it's harder to find. But there's a whole GitHub repo with a whole bunch of them. Yes, there is Liege. There's like a lot of these themes. Let's get through them all. Liege is, if I can spell it right, which is, I believe, a city in Belgium, maybe. It's designed to have a particular familiar look and feel for many, many people. Yeah, see, by the way, Mark Carl says, need to get me that Straylight theme. Love Neuromancer.
Nice.
See?
Someone caught it. I mean,
Exactly.
this is the crowd. I also like the Gotham theme. I don't know who put that together, but that was one of the ones I looked at early on.
Let's see. So like ones I've used before, I've never used 35C. I've used Blood Dragon only as a joke, I personally. Although again, you mentioned that somebody in chat was actually using this recently. Like this, there are some people that actually are like, I mean, the purple contrast isn't terrible. It's a little much purple, but I don't know. Like it's usable. CMYK, it's not terrible.
I think
No,
toughest
Dracula.
part with dark themes, for me anyways, because I love the mini graph, is that when it's dark on dark, the mini graphs they struggle.
Oh, this is something I was going to bring up before when you were talking about how you really like the kind of high contrast. The mini graph, a lot of people don't even realize the mini graph faithfully maintains all of that, right? So you can actually zoom in the mini graph and see like colors, I think, right? Like this, I'm pretty certain,
Yep.
like this currently selected line and whatever. So if I reduce the layout, feature map, where's I should remember the name of this. Where's the mini graph? Mini? What am I doing? Oh, that's it. No mini graph for me. I don't get. Oh, because I'm not in graph view. So yeah, that'll happen. Turns out it's not really interesting to do. Right. So you get like the edge color on these lines, highlighting, and actually like whatever token kind of highlight color you've got here, you see in the mini map. And so if you select something that occurs multiple times, this is like actually a useful thing. People will like I've heard from people who will like zoom the the mini graph up really big, click a variable, and then they want to see everywhere in the whole function that thing. I mean, you could also just zoom out of the main function too and kind of get the same effect. But the mini graph is a little bit cleaner because all you see are the highlights, which is kind of cool. Oh, are you still? Oh, here. I think I can start my virtual camera again. All right. Let's see if that breaks the audio. I'm still talking.
I was just watching on my phone.
Okay, yeah, audio's still good.
Cool.
Excellent. Did not break. Yeah, I don't know why that one. Yeah, I'll have to do some more troubleshooting later. Okay, the other thing that this thing shows that I wanted to show off here is this is high-level IL, and y'all may notice a difference here if you guys have used the very latest dev as of yesterday. I think last night. I don't know, a couple of days recently. Dead code elimination got a major improvement here, and so one of the things that the feedback we've been getting about high level IL is like, hey, where'd my code go? Right? You'd be in you'd be like disassembly and you see a whole bunch of like stores, and then you go to high level IL and you see like a single store, and you're like, well, where did the rest of it go? Because in this particular case, these stack arguments, BINJY looks at it and goes like, those aren't used; they're just pushed onto the stack because the string reference is being passed to something as the very first variable, and then it's just a string API, so it references the whole rest of the string. But high level IL wasn't tracking that, and so it would optimize away the other stores, which is pretty annoying. You don't always want that in that case. But at the same time, you do want, like when a bunch of other variables are loaded to the stack, when they become arguments to functions, for example, like you don't need to see like if I switch over to, I think one of the challenge ones or bomb. Well, bomb should do it. Anything that's got yeah. So here's a good one. That's right. This one is that. Right. So if I've got this printf call, and I've got the string here, I don't really need to see this one right here, right? Like loading the variable and then setting as the argument. Maybe in that particular case, I actually don't want to show it. So I can right click on the variable. And yes, I know, man, this right click menu is super overdue. And I can choose dead store elimination and I can allow it. So I can say, yeah, go ahead and get rid of that one. Like I actually don't need that. Which is a really good example. Like this variable here, just go ahead and allow that. Clear these out because these are actually just arguments to functions. So maybe I don't want these to go away. And so this lets you like choose whether or not you want to see these variables, which may otherwise have been optimized away. So that's a cool new feature. It was one of like the common feedback. Have you run into situations where you're like, wait a minute, where that code in high level IL, or are you not as much of a high level IL user at this point?
Oh, I look at high level IL all the time.
Yay! I'm still not good. Now, have you done a lot of scripting and automation with it? Because I still, like, out of habit, I still use MLIL.
Yeah, actually. So I was doing something recently and it was actually kind of slick because I was able to cheat a little bit and just find all the blocks that I wanted by doing string searching on the HLIL, and then I did a more exact matching on the function calls I wanted based on parsing the arguments.
Oh, interesting.
So like, yeah, I could kind of cheat a little and look for specific constants that I had named or symbols just by their name, and then that gets you right down to a block anyways.
And there's been some improvements too to like the mapping between ILs. I think I showed this off. I don't know. You mentioned you've been checking out the streams. I'm not sure if you've seen how you can take like an IL instruction, or it's a good example. Current function. No, let's do it again. Let's do it the way around. Current LIL. We'll pick a random thing. Yeah, so the fact that there's MLIL and MLILs, like you can get multiple mappings now between ILs. That's a neat trick. So that's super useful. Or like if you've got like an MIL, for example, if I take this one and from high level IL works, that's perfect. So current high level IL 14, and I want actually I think that one is not there yet. But like give me all of the MLIL instructions that were folded in to create that high level IL instruction. So it gives you the set of them. Oh, actually, that's why. Yeah, I can go from MLILs, and then I can go for each of that. I could add them. I can get LLILs off those. Right? Yeah, so you can get a mapping of all of the IL that like folded up in each of the layers, which is cool. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the like the major features that that landed this week. And that's actually, so one of the other things to point out is if you haven't already noticed, you can, here's the API, track our milestones. And so we try to, we don't, sometimes we'll forget, we'll have issues that we're not not explicitly creating GitHub issues for, or we have on like a different repo. But for the most part, we try to have all of our features and bug fixes that we're tracking for release in GitHub. So you can track our 2.3 release, which is actually, I would be surprised if it lands January 13th. Not gonna lie, we got a lot of stuff still left to be done, or some of these may get punted to a later release. Or, but that dead code elimination was one of the sort of like biggest work view, and this actually I think is really pretty done with reflection view. So we do plan to have some other features, but I think because we got reflection view, we'll probably punt the broader refactor later. Which and you were just talking earlier about how you're using reflection to what was your I'm trying to remember your preferred layout. You wanted linear on the right, reflection on the
Yeah.
left. And the problem is now you can't switch reflection view to linear. So you have to kind of go the other
Right.
way, and you can move it over to like this side, and you could move. So you could have linear on the right. You could have your and like even the layout, the doc widget layout system is a little more rigid. Like you have a little less flexibility. You might want to do, but yeah. So you can have. Oh wait, this is not even linear yet. So yeah,
Yeah.
flip over to linear view on the right. Yeah. But the other thing you wanted was like just function at a view time, which right now linear view is like everything. So you really want linear reflection, single function view on the right, to kind of match your workflow. Now, is that something that you got used to from using Ghidra, or just in general you thought that was a workflow you'd like better?
Yeah, so definitely have used Ghidra and like that view, but I'm always flipping back and forth between, and this is just how I work, disassembly in the graph view and either HLIL or decomp or source on the right.
Yeah.
I
Well,
that's
see
just kind of
that's not a Ghidra thing then, right? Because Ghidra's graph view is not the best view, I would
right.
say. Like
Yeah, I would use their linear
linear
disassembly for
disassembly.
Ghidra.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But and for me that was just, these are the two things that I want to see. I want to see the
Yeah.
highest level abstracted thing, and then I want to see the truth on the other side of what's going on at the
Yep.
lowest level. And I actually have never used the linear view to like scroll between functions. So, you know, I,
I
at
feel like
that point,
that's a bit of an experiment. Like I still think it's useful for exploratory stuff, but I think that people aren't used to it yet because nothing else does that. And I think
yeah.
the verdict's still out. Some people have like been like, I don't know. Like I don't really think I'm ever going to use it. And I think I kind of want to wait and see because it's hard to say sometimes whether people aren't used to it just because they've never had it or because it's just actually not useful, right? So I'm curious. That's
Well,
my summary.
to me, the question is like, what is proximity between functions even mean? Like, do you use that because the functions are related, or you're just curious what's locality?
I mean, I think the same way that so I mean, one, yeah, most of the time proximity is equivalent to source. Not guaranteed, but compilers are usually pretty, they're not only taking compiler units and keeping them together.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the other one is that like for smaller binaries especially, I just kind of like to scroll between things and look like between functions. Um, and so it's more during like the where you might just use like the feature map to like scan through stuff, similar kind of thing. Like I want to see, or even just scroll through like a function list.
See,
Um,
that's really interesting because I usually am thinking like a graph tree traversal kind of thing. That's how I explore binaries, and so I'm always thinking in a call graph sort of context.
Castleton's like Jordan, still trying to justify the linear HLIL view. I like linear HLIL view. I think it's. I mean, let me put it this way: if is the only reason for a linear assembly view because you want to see between functions and the data variables that exist between functions. Because if not, if you actually find, if anybody finds value in like a linear disassembly, then I would argue that like the same stuff applies um, to high level ILs, right? So like, you know, if there are people that really just want to look like scroll through disassembly and see all the functions, I think the same argument applies. So yeah, there
Maybe
we go.
you, man.
Good. Look at that. No, I got somebody in chat. Somebody in chat. Segment break backs me up. They're like, yeah, like I'm used to scrolling through everything. I like seeing everything there. So all right, we have
Okay.
at least one fan of linear high level IL. And see, there we go. Two. Again, somebody else is like, you know what? I'm kind of getting used to it. And they're using it for exploratory. Yeah, because so here's the other thing. High level IL is the highest level of abstraction, right? Which means it's the most like information dense, like the most compact representation. So if you look at disassembly and you're scrolling, you're gonna have to scroll 10 times as much on average. I don't know, you pick some constant between functions than you would if you were in high level IL. So
Hmm.
that's my other argument for like why I think a linear high level IL is a thing.
If I'm scrolling between functions, yeah, I do want HLIL to be the view, but I guess I just don't do it that much.
Well, and I will say that the fact that we don't have a single function in linear, in fact, I think that's actually on the list of 2.3. Where'd it go? Let me see. Maybe not. That one may not be tagged for 2.3. I thought it was. Maybe that's being held off for the big 3.0 after 2.3, which is something we're toying with. That's not kind of set in stone. Yeah. Cool. All right, I think so. I wanted to cover that dead code elimination. I think topics. We would love to hear more topics from chat if there are things that we have not covered on stream that you want to see covered. I mentioned earlier SCC is one that has been requested, so I'm definitely going to spend some time with that in future weeks. I want to go over SC Ninja. I want to get better at using that and playing with that. Let me think. What else? Oh, I have one special little thing here. Let me see. Can I go back to this? All right, so now we're both on camera. So good thing you weren't picking your nose or something there. Wait. Oh, I lost your audio. I can't hear you. Say something.
Oh, I
Oh
was
no.
muted on my side.
Okay. All
That's
right.
my bad.
Good. That's all right. No, I was like, oh
I
no, I
didn't say
broke it.
anything good.
All right. All right. So here's the. We're gonna shrink and we're gonna make it bigger. This is the big reveal. Most people are gonna like not be like whatever. There it is. Look at this little guy. Look at this little guy. This is
So cute.
the binary ninja. He's otherwise known as BINJY. Uh, so I have a challenge that I mentioned the very first week of the stream, and the first person to solve this challenge is gonna get a BINJY. So we've got these little we got a 3D printer at the office that I've been playing with, and it's taken me an embarrassingly long time to get a good print out of it. No, I may have a couple like default good prints, but playing with the models and slicing and all that, it's been fun. But I'm gonna send a little BINJY here. See, all right, we got at least one person who wants a little BINJY. The
What
trick
was the
is,
challenge?
here's the challenge. You have to identify the intro and the outro on this stream have a particularly interesting origin. And if people can make, I gotta make BINJY bigger here. Send it back. So if people can order send it back. Oh, control end. I need to remember that hockey. Yeah. So the first person to email BINJY at Vector35 and that can tell me where the the music on the intro, is it intro or outro or both? I think it's both. Comes from. I'd accept either one if I'm misremembering. Um, we'll get their very own BINJY. I will send that out. And I think that's something that you probably can't do during the stream. So stream gets a little bit of a head start, but people that tune in later on YouTube will be able to get to it too. Anyway, I I am
No, I'm stumped.
yeah. That's
I'm not gonna win that one.
I mean, it's something that's audio. Oh, that was embarrassing. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. It's translucent too, by the way. So he like glows. Or is it? There we go. Get him like shiny. Anyway, um, that's my prize for the audience. But yeah, we'll and again as a reminder, we're taking off the next 2 weeks. So you get plenty of time to get your submissions in and get your prize sent out to you. Mark, thank you very much for joining me. This was fun hanging out. You're welcome back anytime. Like I said, I enjoy having somebody just to like chat through the regular stuff with, in addition to chat. So with that, I think
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me, man.
we'll wrap it up. Awesome. Well, thanks again. Take care, chat. Have a happy holidays. Everyone stay safe. And we'll. Oh, here's your. Listen very carefully. Here's your chance. Here's the outro music. Take care.